Hey, welcome back. This is Justin with Figuring Out Finances. Thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to thank everybody that subscribed and watched last week. It means a lot to have your support. I am excited about where this project's going, and I'm excited to have you along for the ride. I also had a couple people reach out this week that said that they were excited about what I was doing and wanted to try it themselves. So for those of you that are trying this and trying to get better at investing and saving, more power to you. You're going to do great, and thanks for coming along for the ride as well. Today we're going to have a closer look at the VGSTX holding, kind of look at what the fund is composed of and a few details about it. So we're going to get into that right after this. And we're also going to kind of take a look at the Vanguard site to get a little bit more familiar with it as well. And then at the end, we're going to go over the January 27th $5 a day project that we're working on. We're going to do an update and see what we've made or lost so far in this project. So thanks for tuning in, and let's get right into it. All right, so for this section, I thought it might be helpful for us to just look at the Vanguard website, and I can kind of walk through. We're just going to go through the VGSTX fund just to kind of get an overview of things you can do on the site. Things that you might find useful, and maybe we'll learn a couple things along the way. So here's the Vanguard.com website, and up here at the top, we're just going to type in the search bar. We're just going to do VGSTX. And you can look at any of Vanguard's funds from here, but we're just going to start with this one just because that's what I've got the $1,000 invested in right now. So we'll click into this. So we'll kind of just work our way from the top to the bottom and kind of talk about different aspects of this fund, and I'm not going to cover everything. Some of the stuff is a little more complicated and I don't understand it, so I'm just going to gloss over that stuff and focus on the things that you might find important, especially just getting started. So up here at the top, in the management style, we can see this is an actively managed fund, which means Vanguard employees are actually actively managing this fund, and they're picking and choosing the mutual funds or the stocks that are part of this fund. What's great is with Vanguard, you have really low fund fees and expenses. The expense ratio is only 0.31%. So basically, this is an annual amount of money that is going to be taken out of whatever you have held in your account. So you really want your fees to be as low as possible. I'm a big fan of Jack Bogle, and he talks a lot in his books about trying to keep your expenses low as a great way to make your retirement or savings dollars go farther. So this fund's pretty good. To tell you the truth, Vanguard's even got some more aggressive funds that have even lower expense ratios that are down to as low as like 0.08 or 0.06, which is just extremely low. On the other end of things, just so you know, if you were going to have somebody actively manage your stuff like as a financial advisor or whatnot, it wouldn't be super uncommon to see somebody charging 1 or 1.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but 1.5%, is like 5 times as much as this 0.31%. So over time, that's going to cost you a lot of money for somebody else to manage the money for you. I'm not saying I've got no problem with financial advisors. It is just something to be aware of as you're getting into investing. So up here at the top, we've got the risk and reward scale, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, if the fund is more risky, you're going to see it up on this 4 or 5 section, and then the less risky ones are going to be a 1 or 2. This one's a 3, so it's in the middle. We'll get down to how this fund is allocated as far as stocks and bonds here in a bit, but you'll see that it's relatively conservative, and you'll see that in the returns as well. It doesn't make a lot of money necessarily, but it also, when things are not going well for other stocks, it tends to not lose money as quickly as well. I'll draw your attention to this. The initial investment amount was $1,000 for this fund. This isn't necessarily my favorite Vanguard fund. This is just one that had a $1,000 investment minimum, and so that is why I chose it for this project that we're working on this year of investing $5 a day, starting with $1,000. So as we scroll down, we can see that the inception date of this fund has been around since 1985, so it's been around for a long time. If you want to read about the product a little bit more, you can see here that it targets 60% stocks and 40% bonds. Going down further, we can see some performance and fees over time. So this is helpful if you're looking at any fund. You can kind of see how a fund has performed over time. So like year to date, in the last year, this fund has really struggled. And that makes sense because the stock market has gotten hammered in the last year. 2022 is not a good year at all for stocks. So this comes as no surprise to us. Although you'll notice that this 17.99% is lower than what I think even the Dow lost, which I think was 25 to even 30%. So if you were invested in this during 2022, your losses would have been less. And then the upside for gains, though, as we can see over longer periods of time, the 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year, this is the total returns. So this 10-year is okay, 7%. That's a pretty good return. There are definitely funds that make a lot more money than that, but they are also riskier. So that is kind of the whole balance that you have to do with investing as you're trying to decide how much risk do you want to take on. If the risk is worth it, then you can make more money typically, but you can also lose more money. So if you're a young investor, you're probably more apt to take risks. If you're older or getting closer to retirement, you probably want something that is less risky and maybe has more bonds, for instance. As we continue to work our way down, you can see here that once again, this VGSTX, this is kind of just goes to show that compared to a fund from another provider with similar funds in it, is going to generally have a higher expense ratio. So that is going to be more of your dollars going to whoever is managing the fund for you. Once again, Vanguard's great because they try to keep their expense ratios low. You can scroll down here a little bit farther, and then we can see the price that these shares are trading for. So one share of VGSTX right now, not right now, but in the last 24 hours is trading at $25.69. Which is pretty low if we look at the here as a whole. So these 52-week highs and lows show us in the last year the highest that this fund is traded at, which is this $30.87, and the lowest it's traded at is $23.92. So with this $25.69, you can see that we're pretty close to this 52-week low. So I'm no profit. I don't know how this project's going to go, but I would say that we're investing at a pretty decent time. So we'll see what happens in the next weeks and months here. If you want to go back and look at historical prices, you can always do that here in this chart. And you can kind of back out the time frame. So we can see in the last year, for instance, that 2022 is rough. So we were trading at about $30 back in January this time last year. And then just over time, we're down to $27 here, down to $24. It got a little bit rough here in November, and then it rallied a little bit, dropped again. So yeah, stocks are all over the place. But if you like numbers, you can go in here and kind of see how it's done historically. This part is interesting, the portfolio composition. This is with mutual funds or different funds that you might trade. They're comprised of different funds, and so this fund, the VGSTX. Is composed of all these different shares, so you can go through and you can kind of see, some of these are like this line right here. This is Vanguard International Growth Fund. So these are growth stocks. This is comprised of growth stocks that are international, so somewhere outside of the United States. And then you can kind of just see how all this is laid out. And if you're interested, you can kind of drill down and see the nitty and gritty of what makes up the asset that you purchased here with VGSTX in this case. So down here we can see the current composition of VGSTX, and right now it's 62% stocks and 37% bonds. So like I said, pretty conservative. That's why it gets the 3 out of 5 rating. And they do target, sounded like they target 60-40 with this fund, so it's a little out of balance, but generally that's why, as we saw at the top, this is an actively traded fund. So over time, as things adjust, they probably try to make trades within the fund that you don't necessarily see to try to even this out to whatever their target is. And then down here at the bottom, the style box, you can kind of see on the left here, these are more of the stocks and how they are composed, and the bonds, what they are targeting as well. So that is an overview of the VGSTX fund, and you can do this on the Vanguard site with any fund or stock that you might be interested in researching. So it's a great tool to kind of get your head around an asset that you might be trying to buy, and I've found it to be a really useful tool. Okay, so here we go. So this is the first check-in that we'll be doing on the money that we've got invested. So this is kind of exciting. So right here you can see the total cost. So this is the $1,000 plus the $35 I invested the first week. And as I'm checking on this tonight, which is Thursday night going to Friday morning, the 27th of January, 2023, that next week's $35 is just hitting the account. So that's why we've got this 1,070. So we can just kind of ignore that, but I wanted to explain that quickly. And this is the most important thing right here. So we've got a $20.36 gain already on the money, which is great. Now this gain's unrealized because we actually, we haven't sold the stock yet. But the value of the shares that we have has gone up to the point that basically our $1,000 plus the $35 has an additional $20.36 that's been made on the account already. So our investing is already working here very early on in the first week. Now it's not going to be like this week in and week out. I can guarantee that. Well, I can almost guarantee that. But it's nice to start off on a good foot here at the very beginning. So that's our first check-in. And here's one more look at our numbers here. You can see the total contributed, the total gross so far, and our total saved. So we're off to a really good start. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll give you another update here in about a week, so you can stay tuned for that. Thanks again.